All right, quick journal on the current price action we've been facing. In the last video I talked about in this area how I was expecting some downside, and in this area we were getting a pretty good spot bid, which gave us a short squeeze right here because this move coincided with the news event of Ripple winning the lawsuit against the SEC. But so we had a short squeeze here that brought us to the top of the range, and we had a UTAD event right here which sent us back down. So because this is a UTAD, in my mind, I'm expecting us to come take out the lows right here and potentially come down to mitigate this these orders that are right here, which is about 28.8k. So how that plays out, I am not sure, but it'd be interesting if we can make a move down here and kind of hover around that order block before we spring down, right? And then continue our way up as a bullish scenario to kind of clear out some of the leverage that's been accruing here, right? On the flip side, you could have a move down here, you know, have a short squeeze, come back up here, and then continue to take out low after low if we are indeed more bearish. Because on the larger time frames, if you look at this structure that's playing out, you do have, it would make sense to come back down here to retest some of the volume here or retest some of the volume that is up here. But so if we do have to kind of make our way down here to find support before we continue up, that would make sense to me. But short term, I'm looking at more downside. Okay, next we're going to zoom in and take a look at this structure in here. Okay, so this is a very bear structure, quintessential bear structure. You have your selling climax right here to your automatic reaction, which is, or automatic rally right here. Okay, so selling climax, automatic rally. Right here, you had a little bit of a structure test right there, which coincided on the midpoint, okay? And then you had a UTAD event right here, which is also a rejection of the midpoint of the entire structure, okay? And from here, and from this UTAD event, it's just been down only price action, you know, where each low that is set is sequentially taken out by the next move, this low taken out by this move, and this low, I believe, is going to eventually be taken out, right? I call these sort of structures an avalanche because price kind of avalanches down, and this can happen on smaller time frames and larger time frames. So here's an example of an avalanche here where you can see each low is sequentially taken out by the next move down, right? Lows are set and then it's taken out, a new low set and taken out. So it's like the most extreme version of downward price action. You can see it kind of more clearly in here where you have a low set and then price takes it out. You have another low set, price takes it out, and it's just down only price action. So I believe that's what's going on here. But the thing about these sort of structures is because it is down only price action, what ends up happening is you get a lot of shorts that accrue in here, right? And bears get comfy as price just grinds its way down. And all it takes is like a little bit of a bid to squeeze all this leverage out, okay? Because the idea is that people are setting their stops right above each local high, right? So once you do get that bid, you know, it's easy to run the stops of all the leverage and all the shorts that are taking place in here. But ultimately, I think that will take place. That short squeeze will happen once we run the liquidity of the lows, which is right here. Again, you do have this order block that's sitting right here. So it makes sense to me that we would come take out this low right here and kind of consolidate here, you know, and let really people get bearish. Because once we're under this range and we're kind of consolidating under here, I think people would get really bearish, you know, and that would be a good time to kind of squeeze out the shorts. I'm guessing a lot of shorts would accrue in this area, and it'd be a good time to perhaps run the stops, you know, mitigating this order block here before popping up and squeezing out all this leverage, right? But the thing is, if we're truly bullish and we do come down here and consolidate, you know, when we do get the squeeze up, we should be able to take out this high if we are truly bullish, right? If we stop right here and we are unable to set a new high, right? Like if we come up here and do something like this and we start distributing in here, then my bias, of course, would be that we'll continue to run the lows and continue the downtrend until we get to another area of interest right here, which is probably going to be like, finding support like within this area somewhere, or maybe even like within this area. We'll have to see how it plays out. Okay, looking at the CVDs for both perpetuals and spot, as you can see, it's been pretty much down only for both of these. Weakness showing, not really much of a spot bid, not really much of a futures bid, which is why price has been falling down. Even here at these local lows, it looks like you are starting to catch a little bit of a futures bid right here, but spot is selling, right? Once again, my bias right now is that we aren't going to have any sort of meaningful move up until we make new lows, until we take out this low. Open interest is slightly rising in here, although I am unsure whether or not these are longs or shorts entering the market. So as you can see in this area right here, when we had this sharp move down, it does look like open interest was increasing right here as funding was also decreasing. So that could have been why we squeezed up to the upside here. And it looks like as funding rate increased right here and open interest increased right here, it could be potentially that longs were opening up right here, which eventually got squeezed right here on this move. Although open interest is still pretty high here. So just going to wait to see how it plays out. In this sort of downward price action, it's interesting to me how long liquidations will often mark the bottoms and short liquidations will mark the tops, as you can see here. But because price action is mostly bearish, when you have these long liquidations, price will often still continue to grind down in spite of longs being liquidated. Short liquidations, on the other hand, tend to appear to be more of a marker of local tops. Okay, liquidation here was the top here, liquidation right here was the top of this, liquidation here was the top of this. So I think if you are scalping, not financial advice, this is just kind of talking to myself right now. If you were scalping this avalanching price structure, I think you'd want to look at short liquidations as an indicator to get short, potentially, in confluence with maybe some other signals, right? Because the long liquidations, you know, see, they're not as reliable. You have over 1 million longs liquidated right here and price continues to grind down. You have a big liquidation right here, you know, and price is starting to consolidate, but it does also look like futures is holding flat while spot is selling. So just looking at the smaller time frames, it does look like futures is bidding and spot is selling. But I would not trust this because the downward price action is more indicative of more downside to come. I'll really start getting bullish once we make our way down here to about 29K to 28.6K. Okay, just looking at a 1 minute chart in exo charts, I wanted to analyze each one of these lows to see how much selling is going on here and perhaps how much buying is going up at the top just for future reference. So to start at the lows over here, very significant amount of selling. You can see the selling climax was right here with 163 million in volume and over 100 million in sell volume. Okay, another 165 million in volume here, over 100 million in sell volume. It starts to taper out a little bit, 67 million, 100 million, 90 million in sell volume, but still well over the 100 million in volume in general. Okay, so once we actually got a bounce right here, which is this area right here, using the parallel channel, we can see we dipped beneath the midpoint of the structure. Just looking at the footprint of what happened right here, as well as the dip right here, I'm curious as to if there were any signs in this area that could have indicated that this spring was coming. Just looking at the candle charts, for one, you have what looks to be like a decent amount of volume here. I don't know if that could have been indicative of a retest right there. So looking at the footprint chart, it looks like most of the volume was concentrated here. You do have a lot of volume concentrated here. To me, there doesn't seem to be an indicative reason as to why price came down here. Maybe we just caught a bid. Yeah, because price held support like right here, basically right here. You do have the POC, which is right here, and you do have a significant amount of buy volume that's right here. So maybe that could have been a sign, seeing how much volume was there. Okay, so in this candle right here, which is this candle right here, so you had 41 million in volume, very extreme negative delta, very extreme negative delta, almost 7 million delta. Okay, I'm looking for signs of absorption at this level. Okay, so that'd be green candles with negative delta, and I'm not seeing anything so far here, nothing yet. Right here, you can see this candle was a sign of absorption because you have a green candle here with a negative delta of 3 million. Okay, so that tells me that while there was significant amount of sell pressure on the sell side, there were people underneath here with bids, with limit order bids, which is what caused the candle to close green. So it appears like this was your only sign of absorption here. What's also interesting to me is this candle right here, because it looks like you have what appears to be absorption. You have a lot of buying here, 6 million positive delta, and you do have what appears to be absorption at the top here with these buy orders, the aggressive buyers stacking up at the top. And you can kind of see that at the tops here, not so much here, not so much here. You see it a lot right here. So, but once we actually do dip down here, looking at this structure right here, you do have significant sell volume come in, negative deltas. Okay, going lower and lower and lower, 30 million at the selling climax right here. And there doesn't appear to be any sort of absorption, at least there doesn't appear to be any sort of seller absorption, although this candle is interesting because this closed red, but there's positive delta. Okay, so that means that there were limit orders on the ask side holding the price down here. right? Because the buyers were aggressive. The buyers were buying more than the sellers, but there were limit sell orders that caused this candle to close red. So that's very interesting. And you got the sell orders that are stacking on the bottom here, you know, unable to make a low. Little bit of orders being stacked right here. So that tells me that there could be potentially a bid, a limit bid here that is holding the market up. And then finally, when you do blast out of here, you get 19.2 million, 9.2 in positive delta, and it just kind of rips up right here. So I don't know. I'm just kind of studying this, talking out loud. Oh, interesting. You do have some buy absorption in this candle right here, because you can see the delta was positive, but the candle closed. The candle closed in the negative. So again, people were market buying in this moment here, but there were limit sell orders that were pushing the price down. Very interesting. And you can see the buys kind of stacking up there on the bid side. Wasn't able to hold, and it flushed down. Yeah, no signal from this. I feel like this would have been extremely difficult to trade, you know, because you would probably see price holding the midpoint. And then once it broke through, you'd want to look for a sign to potentially open up a position. But usually I'd have more conviction to open up positions when you have these swing lows, if I see absorption going on at this level, at the midpoint. But because we only had one instance of sell absorption right here, that would have made me pretty hesitant to take this position. And also not really seeing absorption at the lows here, right? Like if this candle had negative delta right here, and I was seeing heavy stacking on the ask side of market aggressive sellers trying to push the market down, just kind of like they did right here, that would be a sign that potentially there could be a bottom in, but I don't know if I would have been able to catch this, if I'm being honest. Okay, next you do have a UTAD event that happens right here, a little bit upthrust and distribution. Not really significant though. We don't really come back down much lower. We take out this low before reversing, and the market does swing up a bit high to set in a local high, which is right here. And yeah, this local high isn't taken out until a day later. Okay, but let's first take a look at this right here. Okay, so at this high, we had 17.3 million in volume, 8 million of that being positive delta. And you can really see the buyers stacking up at the top, which shows that there's someone at the top here that's holding the price down with a limit sell. Not much absorption. I'm not seeing sell absorption, at least in the delta, but you can just kind of tell from all the buys that are stacking up there. So yeah, buying on the way up, aggressive selling on the way down here. Looks like this candle right here was about -12, -13 million in sell delta. And then right here you had -5 million in sell delta. So you did make a lower low right here with this right here, but there was less selling volume, which is interesting because right here you can see there's 16.8 million in sells. Right here you had 9.3 million in sell volume. A much less, although there was a lot more buying here, so that could have been a sign that the sellers are exhausted right here. And then you do see the selling stacked on the bottom right here and right here, so that could have been a sign that this was going to be a reversal of some sort. And I'm curious if you did take the midpoint from this low to this low. Okay, so you don't actually make it down there, right? So that's interesting. And then of course the price rallies a bit higher up into this point right here. But first, let's take a look at this structure right here. What happened, because you did have some interesting moves down right there. Okay, so buying on the way up, looks like really big volumes on the way up. 24 million, 17 million volume, really strong positive delta. No signs of absorption yet, but you can see price getting squeezed here. Okay, positive deltas here, but nothing substantial. But you can definitely tell that someone's up top here squeezing the price down or keeping the price from going up higher. Then you have big volumes here, strong negative delta, 8 million. You come back up, you can see the absorption taking place with the buy stacking up at the top here, and then another leg down, strong negative delta, 22 million sold. But we kind of continue to trade sideways here. What's interesting is you have aggressive buys right here, right? Doesn't look like absorption. Doesn't look like sell absorption on the bottom. It just looks like people aggressively market bought right here and also right here. So very strong, kind of a strong move up. So it makes sense why we came back up to the top here. Although you can see people heavily selling at the tops here. Okay, so finally when we make it to the local top right there, strong moves up. Okay, 6 million, 16 million here. Buyers are starting to stack up at the top here. and then you have a 21 million volume, almost like 13 million in positive volume. You can really see the buys stack up on there, and then just huge flush of selling there. Yeah, and that starts the downtrend. That starts a downtrend of some sort. That yeah, because we never come back up here, and then we actually come down with a spike down here. Okay, last but not least, taking a look at this area of focus, I went and I marked off the selling climaxes and the buying climaxes of this structure just to see what the volume is looking like. And it is interesting to see the difference between the amount of sell volume you get once each low is taken out in comparison to the amount of buy volumes you get at the top. As you can see here at the top, the most amount of buy volume is 60 million, that came on this big move up. But on the bottom, you're seeing a significantly more amount of seller volume, 124 million in volume. Okay, negative 51 delta, negative 12 delta, negative 79 delta, negative 200 delta here, and at the tops you're not seeing that much delta. You're not seeing as many aggressive buyers as you do sellers. 1 million delta, okay, 4 million positive, 25 million delta here, 19 million delta. Yeah, so you can really clearly see how strong the downtrend is when you look at it from this perspective. That is going to be it for today's video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.